So, hello everybody, I'm back from Superbooth 2025 and I'm still in recovery mode and my voice is still a bit gone. But nevertheless, let's try to do this. I want to give you some experiences from a show which is also more about the community than only exhibitors. And I met tons of people which I strangely forgot to take pictures with this time, so I have absolutely no footage of the people I met. Nevertheless, I want to mention some which were really impressive. I ran into Pete Brown from Microsoft and talked with him about when MIDI 2.0 and the ASIO for ARM drivers will be ready, and it's even seems to be delayed a little bit more, so it might be late summer because they want to release everything at once. And yeah, it was really good talk, and Pete's really a nice guy. And I also ran into David Hilowitz, which you also might know from his YouTube channel, where he tests a lot of old gear and equipment and makes samples out of it. But I know him from Decent Sampler, and if you are a user of my Convert with Moss tool, which allows you to convert multi-samples in different formats, it also supports Decent Sampler, and it's great that I met him now personally. And so if I have questions in the future, I can now directly contact him. Yeah, and I met many more people and friends, which are much too much to name, and some great inside talks and about stuff which will come, which I cannot talk openly. So this was already very good to be at the show. But the first question is always, where do you stay at which hotel? And this time I stayed close to the main station because it's always easy to reach. And in the first evening I met with my good friend Odo, and he showed me a bit around Kreuzberg again, and we had some really good food at a Swiss restaurant and had to drink some Swiss schnapps afterwards, where we got invited to. So already the first evening was a bit of a tough thing to do. And we discussed the big Kota happening, so the next BitB community talk, which will happen at the 25th of May. And as usual, it's at 19:30 at Central European Summertime. But more info and a proper announcement will follow soon. And this time it will happen on Odo's channel. Yeah, so the first morning I had already to recover a bit, but after seeing this nice little cute robot, I was already in a good mood. So let's start off and head off to Superbooth. Actually, the weather forecast was pretty bad, but as Superbooth came closer, it was better and better. And then, as usual, it was the perfect Superbooth weather with close to 20 degrees and sunshine. It's worth mentioning that this time there were 300 exhibitors. So I heard from an insider that they had 80 more which wanted to join, but they stopped that because they want to keep the mood that it was in the last years. And I think that's a good choice, because this time also it was not that loud, for example, in the big hall. And my good friend Beat, with him I do the music project Border Machine, where we released last year a little 3-song EP, phoned me up a couple of days before Superbooth if we want to do some demo music for Maya, and that's what we did. So we rehearsed a bit on the first day and then played every day at 3 o'clock, a half-hour set, which went really nice, and I hope to get some better footage about that, which we will release then on our Border Machine YouTube channel. But switching to gear, first I went to the Bungalow Village, which is always a good stop to go as well. And there was Duffer located now in their own hut, and they showed a couple of new modules, but the most interesting I think was this 8-step sequencer, because it does not take too much space and it has some nice tricks up on its sleeve. For example, you can set up a 2, 3 or 4 ratcheting on each step individually, which is not that common for such sequences, and you can also set the range of the sequence, and there are other tricks as well, and yeah, something to check out. Next thing to mention is the huge controller that Yamaha built just because they can, so that's nothing to be sold. They did it just for an anniversary, and this controls the ANX engine as well as the FMX engine of their Montage series, and it's really cool, and I would like to have something like that. So next off, UE is always worth a visit, and they also had a module, so they have quite a big number of modules by now, and this one was quite interesting as well. You can route 6 inputs to 1 stereo output and can do this with lots of random features or sequence that, and yeah, that's quite interesting module to create some new sound effects. But the main reason I was there was Zebra 3, and actually I could not get a view on it because all the time I went to their booth, it was packed with people wanting to see Zebra 3, so I sadly have to wait till the public beta drops, and this should not be too far in the future. Same holds true for their UB, so their series of little effects, and this is also to be expected in the near future. And yeah, one of the big talks of the show was the new Moog, and everybody was discussing if the new next Moog will be totally stripped down or cheap plastic crap. So, but here it is, a new Moog Messenger, and I could check it out myself, and I have to say the sound is totally Moog, and it also can do some not so Moogish sound. It can also sound quite harsh with some distortion, and it has some additional features like there's a specific switch for not losing the bass when you turn up the resonance, for example. And the build quality is not so bad. It's definitely not like the posh big Moogs, but it's also not in the Behringer territory. It's somewhere in between. So it feels definitely a bit cheaper. The knobs are not that nice, but the top cover is metal, but the sides and the bottom are plastic. But nevertheless, it feels pretty solid, and I think for the price and what it can do, it's yeah, quite worth a look if you are in the game of another mono synth. And I went past the Akai booth as well, and I never saw an MPC X in real, and I was really surprised how big these things are. It's insane. It even looks small in the video, but in reality it's huge. And I had also a play on the smaller one, the MPC Key 37, and I have to say it's much more fun if you have a keyboard with it, because I'm a traditional keyboard player and I have so far the MPC Live 2 as well as the one. And yeah, they do the same things, but it's really more interactive if you have a keyboard with that. I have no idea what that is. To me, the keyboards look a little bit sick. Okay, what it can do is that you can play in each key with the same finger position. So that's a big advantage, but I guess you need to learn this as well. Lots of bustle devices I walked past. Another thing, a PPG Remake is just a mono synth, but the price is, sorry to say that, but it's insane. It's $10,000 or euros, and what is that? Is it silver at the side? I don't know. But I guess some lawyers and dentists really have a need for that synth. And Noite Instruments did not really have something new, but they had a nice paint job on a control keyboard in a kind of Jacob Collier edition, and yeah, it looks really cool. And I met Helga Boss in person. If you have never heard about him, he does several extensions for Cocos Reaper. For example, he does Playtime now in a second version, which makes Reaper act a little bit like the BitB or the Ableton clips with scenes. And yeah, it's really insane what he does and can do with Reaper. And we had a really good chat, and he also gave me some tips how I could improve Driven by Moss for the Reaper version, and yeah, great to have met. Another talk of a show, the new Hex Drums by Eric Hassuns, which combines previous Eurorack modules into a kind of 808 909 style drum machine, and it does that pretty well because the sound range is pretty broad, from nice old 808 909 sounds to totally wild distortion sounds, because you also have a compressor and I think limiter distortion on the master channel, and that's really a device to check out. It's to be expected in September and will be around 1100 euros. Yeah, and BitB also did 2 workshops. First one was Dave talking about the grid, and it was really entertaining. I have no idea what he talked about, and I'm pretty sure I will never use it, but it was really entertaining to watch him do colorful things in the grid. And also the booth was really nice again with a new carpet, and they showed the BitB Connect. I was surprised that it looked a bit smaller than I expected, and so it's a really great form factor, and the knob is not that big as polarity suggested that it is. And yeah, also they had the rotor control in a really big makeup, so they have orange buttons as well as some orange holders, and they showed now the officially from Melbourne Instruments done script on the booth. And they had another workshop which I think was much more helpful. It was about making drum sounds more electronics up to today pop standards. And yeah, you could really learn a lot of tricks how you can process drum sounds. And I really hope that they will publish this workshop as well on their channel. Yeah, things happen at Superbooth. And my absolute favorite synth at Superbooth this year was the Magnolia from Frep Tools, an Italian company. So this thing combines an East and West Coast oscillator into one device as well as FM, and gives, wow, I was blown away how fat it sounded. It's still a bit in a design phase, so the user interface is not fully finished and might change. Also the connections might change a bit. But what I fear will not change is the price of 4,000 euros. So that's quite a thing, but the device is quite unique and you should definitely give this a listen. Yeah, and also controllers were a thing, and also new ideas for controllers were a thing this year at Superbooth. And this one, the drop from Noite Instruments, is pretty interesting and has some new ideas. For example, you can save different settings of the knobs in scenes. So you have 5 rows of 4 buttons to store the scenes, and there are also differentiation between storing all knobs and storing only a row of knobs, and then you can recall them. And you can also do this by a time change, so you can change it on the beat, and you can also blend between 2 settings. Yeah, this gives totally new options. Yeah, and there was the Clank, which was also quite famous at the show. I played with it, and yeah, you can do drones of all kinds. I had no idea what the knobs did, which I was turning, but if you're into drones, this is definitely something to check out. And if you really look for a posh sequencer for your ARP 2600, but then you need to have the original, I guess, to add it to that. Yeah, here is one as well. And yeah, it costs 1,600 euros for a single step sequencer, but nevertheless, it's a nice match for your ARP. And there was a Pre 6 from GS Music, which sounded really lovely. So an analog device, but a polyphonic one. And they have now this little stripped down Pre 6 in contrast to the bigger, older model. And it's also available in a keyboard version. And that's definitely something you should check out when it's available. And another favorite of the show was this new idea from Vimona, a German company, and they had this new idea to create a drum machine which is digital but combine it with an analog voice, and you can directly sample from that voice. So you set up a sound, for example a bass drum or a hi-hat in the upper area, and then press simply the sample button. So you hold the sample button and press one of the slots where you can store this sample, and then you can directly use it with the sequencer. And the great thing about this, you can do that while the sequencer is playing. So you can exchange samples by creating different ones on the top and then exchanging the sound on the fly. And this is really, really interesting. And it's not only that analog sound, you can still edit them with the usual things when it's digital, and also add all kinds of effects to them. And this is still a prototype, and it's expected by the end of the year. They did not really say what the exact price is. They told me it's 4-digit, and I kept on asking, and then they said the goal is to have it below 2,000, but I don't know how far below 2,000 euro. And some really nice controller or controller extensions by Tubekch or Tabuteek, I'm not sure how they are pronounced, but you need to have the original model for which them are designed. So it will give you MIDI and more features, for example, for Korg Monopoly or for a Unisynth or for Roland SH101. And then via this extension chip, you can also add these controllers. One will be about 250 euros, which gives you more features for this device. And you can also do automation with that and control it by MIDI. So quite interesting if you have these old machines. So here it is, finally a Kickstarter campaign by Relic, and this is the most insane controller I ever saw. It's a 16:16 button grid, and you can do all kind of different sequences, but the main feature is that it's not only a controller, it's also an audio switcher, so you can connect different audio inputs and outputs, and then with the sequencer you can switch them very, very fast, which means you can send notes, for example, to different synthesizers on the go randomly or sequenced. And yeah, it's something you need to try out yourself to understand what you can do with it. And it will also get BitB support, so this is something to check out when it's finally available. And the price is not that insane as you might expect. The price is about 1,600 euros, but it also includes this breakout box, which allows you to connect this easily, for example, to Eurorack or your other synthesizers. Yeah, and a stripped down version of the third wave, which is now called the 8M. And the differences are that it's cheaper, but it's still around 2,000 euro mark, which I think is quite a lot still for such a device. And the difference is that it has only 8 voices instead of 24, and it's only 2 multi-trumble instead of 4. Looking at the Novation booth, they had finally an update for the Launch Control XL, which never really got an update because the first version was exactly the same as the second version, which was pretty strange, and easily switch between different modes and will still get the correct position with the knob, which I totally prefer. And it has a display, so you have at least an idea what you are doing. They also showed another bass station with a new paint job, so that's really the only difference. I hope that at least that the modulation and pitch bend wheel do not get sticky over time as with the older models, so hopefully that's an improvement. And it's more expensive than the other ones, but nevertheless, if you want to get a bass station, that's a nice looking one. And the toads were mating again this year, so again, as last year, the Superbooth had to end at 9 o'clock, but the party went on outside in the Klunkerkranich, what a nice word, when just imagine 4,000 people leaving the Superbooth and go over into a little club, and it has a beer queue about several hundred meters, and yeah, but nevertheless, it was great. Saturday evening was the only evening I had time to watch or listen to the music, and this was definitely the best evening, as I also heard from other people. Lisa Belladonna had really a great show off of the new Moog synthesizers, and this was really nice to listen to. And then we went to my absolute favorite, Ströme, a German band which does really great stuff with modular synthesizers, really entertaining. And this was really a great end of the last day. And as I said, then we went off to Klunkerkranich, where Tune Girl again rocked the stage with a great techno set, as well as Italo Brutalo, who also did a quite different techno set, also very entertaining, and people enjoyed it. Yeah, so much about Superbooth. What did you experience? Did you watch all of the 3,000 and more videos from Sonic State and all the other reporters and YouTubers? Tell me down in the comments, and I hope to meet you as well next year at the next Superbooth. And until then, make some funky music.